Am I audible?
Excuse me.
Oh,
We'd
yes.
like to ask what Team Oreo's POI preferences are, as they haven't stated it in the
Oh, we will give you our POI preferences as we speak.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, am I audible? Yes, you are. Thank you. My preferences are verbal and my pronouns are she, her. And with that, I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Before we start the debate, we would like to clarify that prop does not limit ourselves to efforts that just come at the expense of biodiversity. We're just extending ourselves to that extent. If that is the case, it has come to, and we'll prove why it's just to win this debate, right? Our policy that animals, plants, they can all reproduce, right? And our third argument will support this later on, but we tell you that when it comes to animals that are close to going extinct, or there's a small number of them, we will protect them for the future world. And we're not going to just leave them to die. And what our world looks like is helping the world, the earth grow once more, guaranteed prosper. And what we see on upside is the complete opposite of this, right? We see carbon emissions that are what harms biodiversity the most. We see climate change can alter habitats, climate-driven extinctions. And what we are proposing to you is that not just a way to help biodiversity, but we're going to an extent that help them in the long run, right? To go into the two arguments that we bring to you, to the three arguments that we bring to you on side prop. The first two have been presented by me. The first is principle and how we only have one earth. Like to go into the first argument of principle, even in the Stone Age, when there was Adam and Eve, a human's natural instinct was to survive, right? When our world is falling apart because of carbon emissions and how that leads to global warming, climate change, we tell you when our lives are at stake, we have to do what we have to do to survive, right? Opposite, oh, what about the plants, the animals? For plants, we'll be able to reproduce. We'll tell you that later on. No, thank you. And obviously, we're not going to kill animals that are extinct or are rare. That is our policy. And we tell you that on the upside, these animals and we humans will suffer even more, right? We see no other efforts that have actually worked to help alleviate carbon emissions. We already see ice caps melting on side up, animals dying, our world's dying. What we are giving you is an opportunity to alleviate this issue. Right? Comes at risk. But with this, we prove to you why these risks have to be taken and why it's principally right to take them as well. And summarize, without these efforts, our world dies. We die, animals will die, or get harmed to some extent, even if that is not the extent of like dying, right? And that is just a world we just don't want to live in on side prop. Yeah, I'll take that POI.
So you said you will protect animals that are close to extinction, but what about the animals that aren't close to extinction yet? They'll go to extinction if you destroy their homes.
Okay, we tell you that we do have a backup plan for that in our third argument, right? And we also tell you that your side is going to bring more harms to these to biodiversity in general. Right? The second argument is how we only have one Earth, and this replies to your POI, right? This extends onto our first argument of principle. But when our natural instinct is to survive, imagine how worse it is when our one Earth is already dying and falling or failing to support the human life or animal life because of carbon emissions. When we told you, which we tell you is the cause of global warming, right? We tell you, Judge, there's only one Earth and only one world we can prosper, and then there's no other planets that can help us, right? What does this mean? One, we should do what we can to save our world. Two, we should do what we can to ensure that worldwide incidents are going to be solved or alleviated to some extent, even if that means at the expense of biodiversity. And Judge, when we tell you we only have one Earth, right? Our side tells you we should go to the extents that may hurt biodiversity. And we tell you why. Whatever side opposition brings to you, we tell you is inefficient because they already tried all of this. And that is still why our world is failing. Or that is still why these ice caps are melting, why polar bears no longer have habitats. Even the animals that aren't going extinct, they are and they will go to extinct because of that, because we aren't taking the risk that we should. We see a world where animals are already suffering on side opposition. And we also tell you to clarify, it is okay to use, and we agree that we should try to protect biodiversity. That is why we are giving you a backup plan to help and allow biodiversity to prosper in our third argument, even after the expense of biodiversity, right? And we also tell you that it should be allowed and supported to go to the expense at the expense of biodiversity because of our policy, because of all the reasons I gave to you, right? Let's do a quick recap. We tell you that when our world is already dying, when biodiversity is already dying, we should put ourselves first, our human lives at first, because we only have one Earth, right? And even if that does not stand, we will give you a chance to help the biodiversity in our third argument. And with that, I'm very proud to propose in today's debate.
All right, thank you, Prime Minister, for that fine speech. Now I'd like to invite the Leader of Opposition. Here.
Hi, can you hear and see me?
Yes, I can.
All right, so sorry, just give me a second to get my timer ready. And I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so first I'd like to start with some rebuttals. They said that we don't limit ourselves to killing biodiversity and therefore it's okay. Okay, it's not okay. You are telling people that it is okay to hurt plants and just really it's not. You're telling people it's okay to have a trade-off mindset. It's not okay. You talk about principles and then you completely ignore the principle of not hurting things, of not fighting fire with fire, which is exactly what Prop is doing. You also said that we need to survive and therefore we should kill the animals. Yes, we need to survive. Don't you think we need to think long-term to survive? Can you really imagine if everyone thought like that? If everyone just used everything at once to survive short-term? That's what makes us different from other animals. What makes us different from other animals is we think long-term. What makes humans so important is we think long-term. And you cannot turn us back to animals and say, yes, we can only think short-term. We must hurt our earth to save ourselves for today. No, that's not how it works. You have to think long-term to save our earth and to survive. So in your scenario, we're not surviving. We're just gonna hurt our planet more. You also talked about how we won't hurt animals. I'm sorry, yeah, no, you won't hurt animals. You will just take away their habitats. Is there not a link there? Is there not a link between hurting animals and taking away their homes and letting them die without trees? I'm sorry, but what? And you also talked about how the planet is already dying and therefore it's okay. Biodiversity is already dying and therefore it's okay. But then you also talked about how you wouldn't hurt endangered animals. Both of those principles are just completely wrong. You're saying that you won't hurt endangered species, and yet you will hurt yet you're willing to hurt endangered plants, which are still living things. It's just the entire point makes no sense at all. So now I'd like to move on to my case. Do you want to help climate change or not? Because this, what Prop is suggesting, is not going to do anything. I will be talking about uselessness. My second speaker will talk about the economy, and my third will weigh in rebut. So the entire point of using reusable energy is that we save the earth. That's the entire point. That's why we put much research, so much time, so much resources, so much money. That way we can help the world. Is that not why? Is that not why? And yet what you're doing is you are helping one part while destroying another part, completely rendering it useless, rendering our money, our time, our resources, all useless. And yet it's okay. Biodiversity, like Prop mentioned, like Prop agreed, is at an all-time low. People are breaking it down for palm oil, for buildings, for agriculture, and yet it's okay to harm it. Do you not believe that if we harm biodiversity, we're going to end up harming our environment? Prop's response is to fight fire with fire. It's not holistic and it's not going to work. You're saying we're going to help this by ruining this. Don't you think at one point that ruined planets is going to make a difference? The ruined plants are going to hurt our environment? Do you not understand how important biodiversity is? It's what saves our ecosystems. And you're going to let our ecosystems crumble because you want to live short-term, because you don't want to think about the future. And what you're telling people is it's okay to have a trade-off mindset. You're saying that it's okay to donate to trees and then cut them down, even though in the end it's actually useless. And you're giving the government a cover-up. By that, I mean that you're letting them go and say, I helped the carbon dioxide so much. I did so much. Well, they're there killing trees and therefore killing our environment. You are giving them a mask and we cannot let them have a mask. They need to understand what they are doing to our environment and they need to think holistically because otherwise we're never going to get anything done. And there's so many better alternatives. Solar panels, you put them on your roofs. Does that hurt the environment? No. You said that there were other alternatives. So why are you fixated on the one that hurts our environment? Why not just ban it? We do not support helping in one place while destroying another because it's short-term thinking, it's stupid, it's not going to work. I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition, for that speech. Now I'd like to invite Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Before I start my speech, I would love to get my POIs verbally. I will give time to answer POIs during my speech. My preferred pronouns are he, him. And is everyone ready? Take that as a yes. And my time will start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, without further ado, let's go against our argument and then some rebuttals to take over this debate. Our third argument is that humans don't have so much time in this world to sustain a better future. And the failure to cope with this will bring more disasters in the long term. Here's what the government sides provide to you in this debate in the third term. We plan to use the rapidly growing technology to cover up and handle with the biodiversity that could be taken away, such as my first speaker mentioned about renewable energy. Furthermore, in the expense of destroying nature and there's no food left and no environment for the endangered species, we can use genetically modified food and creating artificial environment to help these animals in danger. Just as last week, scientists made a 3D printed meat in case where there are no more meat left. Plus, this is a really good idea to furthermore cope with greenhouse gas more emissions, since much more farm animals and crops lead to methane gas productions, which is much more bad for carbon emissions in the longer term. Here, you might say artificial plants, GMOs, and technology doesn't count as biodiverse systems and wouldn't even do the same thing. However, we believe that this would do the same thing as the resources do in the biodiverse community and or even do better in the longer term compared to biodiverse systems. And furthermore, this can provide safe and established environment to these endangered species rather than leaving the polar bears to die alone in the ice caps when they're literally melting and their habitats are going away, rather than our opponents just ignoring the fact that our animals' habitats are being endangered and these species are being endangered and just letting them go away. We have an actual plan in the longer term. Rather, it may seem like we're just ignoring that fact. We all have a backup plan, such as using our technology to furthermore adapt to our drastically improving or furthermore worsening Earth. Okay, let's go through some refutations that somehow they misunderstood. So our opponents talked about how we are fighting fire with fire, and that's not the right way to cope with this argument. However, we're just not leave the ecosystem to get harmed. We're not saying that we should harm biodiversity because it is already harmed. This is so wrong. We're saying that protecting climate change furthermore helps biodiversity. And our side, in the longer term, we take both the human life and biodiversity, while our opponent just blatantly claims that they'll just furthermore in the shorter term and in the longer term carry on with their biodiversity, which does not make any sense. And here their burden just does not prove on how they would implement these policies to help lower these carbon emissions. Rather, they just say that, oh, we should protect these animals because they're losing their homes. But why? How are they going to progress this in the future when global warming is getting worse and carbon emissions are going to increase? And furthermore, our side, we support both diversity and humans. Earth is both biodiverse community where humans inhabit, and we believe, and the counterfact that they against their furthermore argument is that lower carbon emission will prevent climate change. And this is a proven fact that scientists and we have established in our past. And this will prevent much more extreme weather events such as rising sea levels. And we believe that with our technology that we're trying to implement in the future, such as GMOs, like we told you in our third argument, will improve food production system rather than relying on animals who worsen our ecosystems. And furthermore, we believe that, Judge, since we take the biodiversity and humans compared to our opponents who just claims that they take the biodiversity on their side, we believe that we take this debate home. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Now I'd like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Sorry, give us a second. Hi, I just want to make sure everyone can hear and see me.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so if everyone's ready, I'd like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I'd like to start off with the few rebuttals to show that proposition's case is completely useless and their examples are a bit wacky. Okay, so first of all, you said, their second speaker said that we support both us and animals. So both animals and humans. This is completely false. You're contradicting yourself. Your first speaker very clearly said, in the long term, we should put us humans first in the fight for survival, which means you've contradicted yourself and you have to get your story straight. Also, I'd like to quote unquote your second speaker who very clearly said, animals worsen our diversity, which is why we should make edited food that way so that animals can't worsen our diversity anymore, which is completely ridiculous. That's literally makes no sense whatsoever. No, thank you. Animals are our diversity. By saying that animals By saying that animals worsen our diversity, you're completely stopping your case and just saying that you don't really care for the animals. Not to mention that you also said protecting climate change protecting climate change helps with biodiversity. We believe you gotten this wrong. We said that protecting biodiversity helps with climate change. Our climate is made out of our biodiversity. Get rid of our biodiversity and you get rid of a climate. That is a fact.
POI.
No, you also said that we only have one Earth. Your first speaker said we only have one Earth. We completely agree, but you guys are once again contradicting yourself because you said, you said, first of all, animals worsen our diversity, so let's get rid of them. You also said that we should put ourselves in front of our animals. You are saying initially, our Earth is made up of a balance between us and animals. What you are saying does not prove that whatsoever. You're initially saying, let's kill all the animals, which means you do not support climate.
POI.
No, thank you. You do not support our Earth's climates. Okay. Also, you said that they see no efforts from us to try to solve this, but this is not true whatsoever. My first speaker very clearly provided lots of more accurate and reliable solutions instead of just killing all our biodiversity, which means you were not listening to our first speaker's speech. Now going on to my substantives. Sorry. So we'd like to point out that proposition says that they want what's best for the climate, but is this really true? No, it's not.
POI.
Sure.
Okay, so first, to answer some of your questions made up on your speech, first, we're not saying that we have plans if in case biodiversity gets somehow like gone, such as you saying kill plants, we have GMOs to support that, which I don't think you have any points on that. And second of all, do you
time's up, sorry. You can't exceed 15 seconds. So first of all, you said, yeah, we have a backup plan in case all of the animals goes wrong, which also brings me to another rebuttal that your first speaker said that you'd protect the animals that are already extinct, but that doesn't mean you're still going to, what about the animals who aren't extinct yet? When you're cutting down all their trees while putting in dams and stuff, then all those animals will go extinct. You shouldn't have to have a backup plan because this plan should work and it should be good for the environment. Now, sorry, going on to my substantives. Prop says that they want what's best for the environment, but this isn't true. If you look from afar, sure, their case might look good, but we call their cases a donut. It means that it looks nice and glazed outside, but the truth is that they have one massive hole, that hole being logic. First of all, they say that they want to create a bunch of machinery, but do you know how much that machinery costs? It's terrible. We could be using all that money that should go into putting better resources and better money that could go into our economy, but instead we're going to spend it on machines that won't even work. Bringing me on to another part of my substantive being that if you're putting all these machines in like dams and in forests, that's not where most of the carbon emissions get emitted. You would want to put them on cars, you would want to put them in the malls, you would want to put them like, I don't know, in houses where most of the greenhouse gases get produced, which means it's completely useful and useless and you're just hurting our environment. Not to mention that if you're just using renewable energy, everyone thinks that by using renewable energy, it's a great trade-off because you're not hurting the environment. But the truth is that your case is hurting the environment much, much, much more than ours because you are implanting them in animals' habitats and home. If we were to put a hydro dam inside of a reservoir, you are killing all the animals that would live there because all of a sudden it's no longer a natural reservoir. Now it's just another natural thing that humans decided to take for themselves. All in all, as side opposition, we strongly believe that this motion should fall because your side is hurting the ecosystem on our Earth a lot more than we are. Proud to oppose. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition, for that advice speech. Please remember to time yourselves. All right, next, Government Whip. Here.
My pronouns are she, her, and I'll accept my POIs in verbal form. And my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Judge, we have only one Earth to live on, and to lower carbon emissions, we should do whatever is the most effective to lower carbon emissions. And we tell you that we take today's debate home by winning a clash, which is which side makes a more effective progress in protecting the Earth in the long term. Our side has been telling you that we support both biodiversity and humans, since the Earth includes both biodiversity and humans. And why is this true that we are supporting both of them? Well, lower carbon emissions lead to prevention of climate change, and reduced effects of climate change include less extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and improved food production system. we also then we can prevent animal habitat loss, and we also provide more fresh foods, which benefit humans and animals' livelihood at the long term. Biodiversity can be restored through artificial means, as it is already a method that is working, for example, GMOs, how we've told you in our second speech. So at the long term, we also protect biodiversity. However, the opposition has never engaged with this point about how we have alternatives for restoring biodiversity. However, on side opposition, at the best case, I'll accept that POI.
You keep on talking about how killing biodiversity is better for the carbon dioxide, but you fail to explain why it's better than any other solution.
As I've told you earlier, at the end, we can protect both biodiversity and the humans after reducing a lot of carbon emissions. So continuing with the clash, side opposition, only at the best case, they can support biodiversity as they claim, but only for a short term. Judge, we tell you that in the long term, side opposition cannot reduce much carbon emissions as we can, which leads to the exact opposite of our mechanism, leading to worsened livelihood of humans and animals. And this is only harming our own. This is harming our only Earth. This means that animals are likely to not even have the habitat to survive in, because we are keep on just emitting carbon emissions, but not reducing them on their side. This is just taking hope. This is just the same as taking away the home of animals. And Judge, please note that they never give any mechanism on how protecting biodiversity can help climate change. We do not see a single solution coming from side opposition that protects the Earth, while they just claim that our solution is not protecting biodiversity or the humans. I'll accept that POI.
How are you planning to find the money for all your plans with editing and artificial stuff?
Could you repeat that?
How are you planning to find the money and resources to complete your plan of making the biodiversity completely artificial?
We're not telling you that the biodiversity will be completely artificial, but even in our worst case scenario, when the biodiversity is very reduced, we still have an alternative for that, which is to store biodiversity. And we believe that this is feasible through government resources, as we have mentioned earlier, how it's feasible already in our world currently. We also have the companies will also have incentives to do so, and we have a lot, and also the government, and also with the contribution of the government revenue, we believe that that problem can be solved. Therefore, Judge, we once again tell you that the mechanisms on side opposition is way too weak, and we have not gotten a single solution about how OP can protect the Earth, whereas we have already proven a lot. Therefore, I'm proud to propose.
All right, thank you, Gov Whip. Now I'd like to invite the Op Whip.
Hello, I'd like to start my speech soon if I am audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The end goal of this debate is to win the fight against climate change. We want to ensure that we and future generations get to live long, happy lives. And for that to happen, let me paint a small picture of the world CROP stands for. A world where the good renewable energy does, for example, is outweighed by the bad it does to the biodiversity. We do not and never will support efforts to lower CO2 emissions if it comes at the cost of biodiversity. Rather, we would prefer and support useful solutions, such as putting renewable energy in places that do not affect biodiversity, like solar panels on top of malls, or the new inventions popping up weekly, such as one that takes carbon from our atmosphere and turns it into materials we can use. We do not support efforts to lower CO2 emissions at the expense of biodiversity, as there are better alternatives that do the same thing without affecting biodiversity. I will now move on to some clashes I've identified in this debate. So one clash I've identified is which side benefits animals and humans both. We won this because your side completely takes biodiversity out of the picture. You keep contradicting yourselves in your speeches. Your first speaker was like, yeah, we don't support humans. We want to focus on animals. We should focus on animals for the long term. And then your second speaker said, no, we support both. Get your stance right. It doesn't make sense because your side is completely taking animals out of the picture and it's not helping. Instead, you want to create a false environment, which isn't even a good argument, as I will be explaining later. Okay. The third argument I've covered is expense. Our side, we do not want our world paying more for a problem we created. There are many alternatives. Yes, sure.
So at the end of the debate, what is your mechanism to prevent climate change?
I will get on to that. Our mechanism is using alternatives to this method, where we use alternatives such as putting renewable energy and energy that does not affect the environment badly while reducing climate change. Okay, I will now rebutting your speeches. So the side on which climate change is decreasing is our side. Prop's argument completely helps us. Yes, there is one Earth, and the side that affects it badly is side proposition. Your solution doesn't do anything. The solution you propose literally doesn't do anything. Your trade-off mindset doesn't hold any value in the climate solution. I don't think side proposition understands what climate change really is. Climate change is made up of the carbon emissions, but also how well we treat our environment. And what you are suggesting is completely dishing our environment out and creating fake GMOs. It's expensive to create these fake GMOs. It is not good to introduce these kind of new things into the environment. We prefer a world where we save climate change and animals are not affected as badly as they are on your side of the world. Okay, so what side proposition is proposing is that they're going to spend extra money and resources to solve a problem you created, because you can use other alternatives that don't affect biodiversity and you don't have to spend the money and time to affect it. Okay, so here's one Earth, right? As you have clearly pointed out, as this is one of your biggest substantives, and that no, and yes, there is one Earth, and the side that benefits that Earth the most is the side that helps climate change, the side that supports both biodiversity and humans, the side that may take a little longer to stop climate change, but in fact will do it more effectively. Because what your side is doing, what your side is doing is essentially taking renewable energy and putting it into places where it affects the environment. It's a trade-off. Nothing good or bad happens to it. It's like telling a company, yeah, you cut down trees every day to make your products, but if you donate money to a tree planting program, then it doesn't matter. You're setting off your carbon emissions, but that's not going to do anything. Our world is already dying. No, we can't have people setting off their emissions or anything. We need them to have less emissions. We need them to reduce emissions, not stay at what they are. Because if we stay at what they are, then our world is just going to get worse and worse. We're already facing human die out by 2100 because of climate. We cannot and will not stand for this atrocity of a solution where it doesn't even help climate at all. Whereas our side have brought forward multiple mechanisms and alternatives that your side has not even listened to about how this solution can help without affecting the biodiversity. So Judge, we are on the side of humanity. We want to survive and thrive without being worried about climate change. We want to use our economic and material materials in a holistic, efficient way without a trade-off mindset. Thank you.
Thank you, Opposition Whip. Now to wrap up opposition side of the debate, opposition reply.
I just want to make sure everyone can hear and see me.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So if everyone's ready, just let me set my timer. Okay, if everyone's ready, I'd like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. We strongly believe that we have won this debate because side proposition completely ignores all of our stances and all of our mechanisms. Starting with, I think the main point of this debate is which side helps climate change more. And the truth is our side, because once again, their arguments look really good until you realize that there's a hole in them. Logic. They have a trade-off mindset, meaning they use renewable energies and they put renewable energy sources in dams and forests, but you're hurting the climate. For example, how do you think we're going to make that machines? Greenhouse gases, it's going to take more money. It doesn't even do anything because it's not in the right place. Not to mention that you're still harming the ecosystem. You're still harming the environment, because if you were to put, for example, a hydro dam in a reservoir, you're still ruining the reservoir. The reservoir is no longer natural. You have made it a human space. You have polluted it. with carbon dioxide once again, because it's going to kind of need that to like factor everything in and to bring all the materials. So you're really just hurting more of the environment and hurting the places that have been okay. Not to mention, another thing that we found of why we want this debate is artificial editing. You are initially creating a Lorax environment because you want to create an artificial environment where everything is kind of fake. As your second speaker said, animals are bad for diversity, which means, so as you guys propose artificial editing, for example, artificial meat, if we need to, we can like tweak animals. You essentially want to play with the rules of life. This is not what you're supposed to do. You guys should not have a backup plan for a problem that you started. This is not how it works. Another reason why we win is that you obviously proposition is obviously does not believe in their case because they have to have several backup plans. Not even that, but straight away they say, we'll protect the animals that are going to go extinct, which means you know that this is going to hurt your environment. You know that you are essentially getting rid of all biodiversity. And what you plan to do when all the animals are gone, what do you plan to do then? Edit all of them? You are wasting millions. You're wasting millions of dollars to solve a problem that shouldn't have been there in the first place. And artificial editing is essentially just you guys trying to play God. You guys should not be trying to do that. You should not be trying to find a solution for a problem you first did. All in all, this is why we believe that the motion should fall. Proud to oppose.
Thank you. Our reply not to wrap up the entire debate. Government reply. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Obese is a very strange mechanism to try to take debates home, right? The first thing we see is we fail to see any mechanisms that work whatsoever, right? We fail to see how they will be helping biodiversity in a logical sense by letting them fall and falter, by throwing money at it. We have been working and doing that for years, Judge, and that's just not been working, right? We also tell you why these methods are just not exclusive to their side from the get-go. So the only solution that they give us is to protect biodiversity, and the other mechanisms that they give us just came way too late in this debate. How will this help our world when it's already dying, right? In order for OP to even think about winning this debate, they have to give us how they'll protect biodiversity, but again, we just don't see that because their side, biodiversity is already dying. It's already dead, right? The third thing that they don't give us is that they give us these alternatives in their third speech with decent mechanism, but that just doesn't stand in today's debate because, again, it came way too late. But lastly, the biggest and most important thing in today's debate is who creates a world that is habitable. And you already lost this debate because they say you're not supposed to tweak nature and whatnot, but we already have and it has been working, right? We tell you that there are trees that have been modified to grow faster, and the world that we see on their side is dying, right? Their first speaker tells us that from their first speaker, we failed to see how they respond to our principle and any of our arguments. Right? All three of their speakers failed to engage with all three of our arguments, right? They tell us, oh, you shouldn't have a backup plan, but we literally just don't see a backup plan from side opposition, right? They say you should use that money for better resources, better money for the economy. We don't see why that matters in today's debate when the stake is our world and the habitats that we live in, right? The third speaker says, oh, solar panels on top of malls and whatnot, right? But we already did that, Judge. That's not exclusive to their side, but we already did it. That's the most important thing. And we have come so far that those extents just don't work. That's why ice caps are melting. That's why polar bears are losing habitats. We don't understand why side opposition is saying, oh, we care about these animals and the habitats they live in when they're letting them die because they're not going to the extent that we offer to you, right? And last, but most importantly, overall, there's just been zero engagement with all three of our arguments, right? Principle, the GMOs, we give you all three arguments that we failed to see any mechanism and engagement with, and because of that, we win this debate. Thank you.